Good morning everyone and welcome to our small footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a family of 8 who live off-grid in Australia. It is Sunday for me, and normally each weekend I do a little bit of a sort of a chat, update, progress type video, a little bit of a just, hey, how you going kind of a thing. So that's what I'm doing today. Now, not overly positive video today, which is unfortunate. So it has rained for the last 3 or 4 days. We've had a lot of rain, which is great. Our water tank for drinking water and stuff is nearly full, which is superb. But it means that not a lot gets done. The temporary structure over the kitchen leaks, and so you have to be careful out there. The floor gets wet and you can't have things in certain parts of it because the roof will leak and things like that. We also have leaking inside, so we end up having buckets everywhere, and it's just vaguely unpleasant. The kitchen structure we will be correcting. We have got some quotes for some metal structures to create a new rooftop over it. It's a little over $3,000 though, so I'm probably going to have to borrow some money and repay it to do that, but it's kind of high on the priority list. And now that I'm earning a little bit of income from YouTube and that sort of thing, it makes it easy to make those repayments. So that's why we can do it now, which is great. But the roof to where we actually live, there's not much we can do about it until we have the funds and the time and the capabilities to basically strip all the walls and the roofing off the metal structure that we live in and redo it. We've tried lots of little stop gaps, some silicone, some of the waterproof taping, that sort of thing. Nothing's worked. There is a rubber sealant that you can paint roll on to the whole ceiling, which will be the next step. But to do that, we are going to have to move solar panels and things like that to do it. So it's probably not for a while, and we don't want to do it when there's any risk of rain either. So anyway, we'll see. But to add to that, before the rain, I planted out a bunch of, you'll have to excuse, I can't find my little stand that I put my phone on when I'm recording normally, and so I'm holding it by hand and it's really hard on my hands and shoulders because of the height. So you'll have to excuse me if I need to swap and change or stop and start, or if you see my hand come into shot, because it's just a little inconvenient. But anyway, so before the rain, I planted out a bunch of zucchini, about half of my zucchini, probably not quite half, maybe a third, and all my cucumbers, because the cucumbers will die off once it gets too hot. So we don't have a particularly large window where we can get cucumbers successfully fruiting and not carking it before it gets too hot, and they won't grow. So I thought, well, before the rain, I'll get them out and that will be superb. And then they will have time to establish while the rain, because all plants love rain. Rain is so much better for them than just being hand watered, and they will take off, and then we'll get some cucumbers before it's too late, and then I will plant more when it cools down again for later on in the season. But we have been overrun with slaters or pill bugs or wood bugs, whatever you want to call them. I'll come and show you. So I planted out here, I want to say 11 or 12 silver slicer cucumbers. It's a new variety that I wanted to try this year, and I have one left and I doubt it will last. So let me turn you around and show you one being consumed and what has happened. Very disappointing. So let me see if I can get this to focus properly, but this is what I'm coming out to find. Seedlings completely devoured to nothing by these ugly little roly-poly bugs. So that's all that ends up left of them, is just these little green nubs, and then eventually nothing, because look, there's a little one there as well. It's not focusing real well because there's too much around. But so there was half a dozen on each side of this trellis here. Let's see if we can get to, there we go, half a dozen on each side of this trellis, and now I've got one that has no damage on it, and that is it, but I highly doubt that it will stay that way. And then I've got my zucchini as well that has ended up the same. So I would have planted out, I don't know, a dozen or more zucchini in this row, whatever fit in this row, and I now have 3 that are somewhat okay, and that's it. Let me show you. So we've got a couple that look okay, but when you get closer, let's see if I can get to focus, there's already bugs on it. So that one will be the next to go, I'd imagine, and the only one, that's it. All I've got left in this row is those couple of plants. I also had turnip seedlings planted out here, and they're all gone. They don't seem to like the beetroot seedlings, which is great because we like beetroot and it's nice to not have something being consumed. But at the same time, we want more than beetroot too. We haven't finished the beds for the tomatoes yet, so I haven't even looked at getting the tomatoes out, and to be honest, I won't yet anyway because they're not big enough. But it's all just super, super frustrating. There's another bed of beetroot that I did, and this is a raised metal bed that is doing really well. This one here, so they haven't touched this, but they also don't seem to like beetroot a whole lot. But this beetroot bed is doing really well considering with the rain. We've got horseradish here is doing quite well, and we've got some Jerusalem artichokes coming up in this bed, but some old onions as well. It needs a bit of weeding too by the looks of it. But yeah, and they haven't touched, this bed is empty mostly at the moment, and the silver beet is doing okay. There's some bug damage, but nothing extensive. So I don't know whether that's because it's in the raised beds, and so the pill bugs, slaters, whatever you want to call them, haven't gotten to this bed. The beds that are having the issues at the moment have brand new soil in them, brand new bagged soil in them. So maybe I need to check the soil that when I open the next bag, maybe. But they were hugelhalter style beds to begin with, so they did have a whole layer of old wood and things like that underneath. So it is a perfect breeding ground when it's damp for the slaters to breed, but we've never had problems with them before, and we've had these same beds for 3 years now. So I'm not sure why it's become the next pest pressure. I've also direct sown some climbing beans, some pole beans, whatever you want to call them, some blue ones, and blue lake, and some purple ones on the other half of that trellis. And even if the beans even come up, I'd imagine that the seedlings will be consumed before they even have a chance to establish. So that's just, I don't know. So I also planted some bush beans in this covered bed here. So this covered bed was where I planted all the kale and the cabbage, and I want to say 75 to 80% of it got eaten in fall. The seedlings got eaten. But I've had a few come up. The kale is doing quite well at the end. There's a few plants of kale at the end that we're using a lot at the moment for frittatas and soups and things like that. And there's probably 3 cabbages that are heading up really lovely. What looks like a drumhead cabbage of some sort, a sugarloaf of some sort, and I'm not sure what the other one is yet. So that will be superb if I can get them all the way through. And I do have row covers over them, and I have bought new little clips that go on the row cover that have a hole in the middle, so they hold onto the row cover, and then you put your pin through the hole, which means that you're not tearing the row cover, and they're more likely to stay put. So now I have more of these hoop structures to go in different places, and I will be covering other things because there are certain things that do get consumed in my garden every year no matter what. Brassicas for a start, because we have cabbage moth galore, but I normally cover my bush beans as well, because I find that as the bush beans come up they get gnawed on, and then they don't establish, you don't get bush beans. So I regularly cover my bush beans, things like that. But that's not going to help me if the stuff is coming up out of the soil. That's only going to help me for stuff that's flying and landing, like grasshoppers and cabbage moth and things like that. Fighting these slaters, I don't know, because they're in the soil already, so putting covers over the plants isn't going to help them. And they seem to go for everything but beetroot so far. And mind you, the herbs and stuff that are established are fine. So if you can get them established enough, again, we're fine. But I don't really have the space to raise things in pots too far. And a lot of things I find here don't do well in pots. They do well once you get them in the ground. Though, as a friend, hi Bobby, said, that's a contradiction at the moment, because when you get them in the ground, they're not doing well at the moment. So I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, and I'm feeling extraordinarily frustrated and disheartened about it all again. And I do find that this happens at the beginning of every gardening season, because there's always something that just doesn't go right. And normally something perks up enough that it compensates for it, but I haven't even got enough established to be able to have that compensation yet. My tomato beds, as I said, haven't been finished yet. We haven't soiled them up yet, but the tomatoes are still not doing well. So we've got that other issue. This feels like a very much of a whingy kind of video, but got to share the highs and the lows. So the greenhouse that we bought was just a real temporary one, $100 and something from Bunnings, and it's just a powder coated steel structure with a plastic coating. It's not working. It gets cold at night, so we have to keep everything nice and warm overnight. So it's great for that. It's keeping the temperature in. We've got seedling mats under it. We've got 10 different seedling mats under the trays. That's perfect. But the problem is that our days get too warm. So things are damping off and dying because it's too wet and warm in there. But like for the last few days, I haven't been able to leave it open because the wind has been too high. It would have blown away. Also, when I leave the doors open during the day, the entire thing gets full of bugs. Now, these bugs don't seem to be particularly detrimental bugs to the garden, but it'll only take a few of them to get in there, and all those seedlings will be wiped out anyway. So the seedlings aren't progressing at any rate that I would be happy with normally, and have done so in the previous years in the proper hothouse that we built. But we pulled the sides of the hothouse off because we had plans for construction that didn't happen, and then we bought new materials to build a new little hothouse, and we just didn't get to it. So this was supposed to be just a temporary thing, and it's proving to be more hassle than help. But anyway, I'm walking past the tomato beds, so I'm going to, potato beds, so I'm going to show you those because that's pretty impressive. We are off to get a bale of straw probably tomorrow or Tuesday to bump these up. So Ruth Stout method, when your potatoes go up, you stack them with straw so that they go up further, so that to make sure that all their growing nodes where they're popping the potatoes out are underneath straw, which means that there's no exposure to sunlight and things like that. So let me show you the bed. This is the potato bed. So as I said before, we've got different varieties of potatoes. So I believe that this first bed was a red-skinned white potato. Can't remember the name of it. I'll have to look it up. The second bed was a blue-skinned white potato, which again, I can't remember the variety. So obviously this potato has done a lot better, but it could have just been an earlier variety, and I didn't look too hard at that the other day. And then the third bed here was a mix. So the first half of it there is some seed potato that I had left over, and then some of these ones here were shopping centre potato, store-bought potatoes. So there was some of the little red ones that we use a lot of for our pork roast and things like that, and then some of the little kifler potatoes that we got in the hamper as well were planted in this half of the bed just to see how it went. So we will just see how we go. That first bed is doing really well. As you can see, we do have some cabbage moths flying around. That little white, I don't know if I can zoom in on here, little white moth sitting right in the middle there. Not that they do much harm to the potatoes, but there has been something eating some of the potato leaves, but not enough to be detrimental so far. And we've got plenty popping up through the straw. So they are doing well, and that's, nice to have that, at least doing well. The strawberries have been doing well even with the slug issues. Yes, we are throwing out or losing portions of a lot of the strawberries because of the slugs, but we have a lot of strawberries in this bed too, which is really nice. Let me turn around and show you. So heaps of fruit coming up in these beds. Some lovely ripe strawberries, so that's nice. There is plenty being eaten as well, of course. Like there's one being eaten there, right one beside it though that looks like it's been chewed on a little bit, but nothing that can't be trimmed off. But there is heaps of strawberries. But yes, for every good one you find, there's one that's been chomped on, quite significantly, especially in the rain. Actually, at the moment, there's more that are chomped on than are good. So whilst there is some yays in all this, there's heaps of fruit, which is superb. There is so many that are inedible as well, that just have far too much damage for us to consume. I did plant some tromboncinos out here before the rain as well, and then have just noticed that we have another pest issue here. So these are they will climb. They're those huge tromboncinos, but let me walk around and show you the other side there. See the damage being done to this leaf here? That is by that little lady beetle. So that lady beetle is a bad lady beetle. It has all those little dots on it. They're all uniform, sort of a grid pattern. That is an Asian lady beetle, and that is what is eating all those leaves and creating all that lace pattern. So that one will be destroyed because it is a bad one to have. And hopefully that plant will recover from that. But if not, I have a couple of extras to plant out as well. Was just hoping that the rain would help with those, but if they're being eaten by the ladybugs, that's not going to help. Badly need to pull this grass out too. The citrus trees are doing really well, but they are on a bit of a lean. I think I need to either, I don't know, prune them or get some support for them because they're struggling with height. So I'm going to have a bit of Google of that. If anyone's good with fruit trees, let me know, because this one here too has significant issues after the rain with falling over. So do I need to prune some of these leaf off? Oh, and look, we've got, so see that little caterpillar there? That is a swallowtail butterfly caterpillar, and we have to remove most of those as well because they will just de-leaf the entire plant because it only takes a few of them and they just eat it all. As much as I like to have a couple of swallowtail butterflies in the garden, we have to go through and remove 98% of the caterpillars, otherwise they will just consume the plant and it won't survive. So if anyone knows citrus trees, best way to do that, I think I might need to stake them higher or cut some of the foliage off. I'm not sure. So they badly need to go out into the orchard space too. They're in giant, like plastic, but quarter wine barrel type pots at the moment. I don't know if I've mentioned it, but we have the kiwiberries and 3 of them just didn't seem to survive the wintering. So we bought some new plants the other day. And I put them in the ground. We haven't got the arbor finished yet, but the plants look really healthy and are starting to try and climb regardless. So let me turn you around and show you. So these are the gorgeous new plants here. So I left the ones beside them that appeared to die just in case, but we've got these here and they're already starting to try and climb these metal things. But these metal structures are not going to be strong enough to hold kiwiberry. It's a very heavy, effusive plant. So we put these poles in and we just need to put some crossbars across it, and then we'll use some dog wire and we will reinforce all of this. So when we put the crossbars in here, we'll put the crossbars underneath the structure so that it's holding this up as well, and then they can grow there. So the one that did survive I've left alone and it is doing its thing, so I'm just going to leave it do its thing, but then we got the 3 new ones hopefully to go across this arch, and we're collecting all the cardboard for the ground and we're still cleaning up, so you know, that's just ongoing, but that's what they look like at the moment. So this is how the greenhouse is looking at the moment. As you can see, a lot of things are struggling a bit. We've got some yellowing of leaves and stuff because it's just a bit damp in here at times, and yet the soil dries out. Like, they need to water some of these as well, and we've got some damping off happening on some of our tomatoes and other things, and it's just, yeah, it's a little bit frustrating. I did plant some corn in these little potting trays because we're hoping to get a big square of corn done, and they are coming up, which is nice, but we'll see how well they do. We have had to set mouse traps in here because I was planting things like my melon seeds, and I was coming out to find that they had been dug up and there was no seeds left. So, but yeah, nothing is excelling in here. And I think a lot of that is just because of the weather. And yet you look at the difference in this. There's one tomato that is doing quite well, and all the rest that are just plodding. This nice big tomato, but yeah, I'm definitely feeling the frustration of gardening being just all a bit too much at the moment, and I don't know exactly how to go forward from here, to be honest. I am a little frustrated to the point of wanting to sort of just toss it all away, and I won't do that because I know that I would regret that. But something that's popped up, obviously a spare seed that was in the soil where I potted up that tomato. But yes, it is a little hard at the moment to get the motivation to keep on going. Also have some bad news about the ducks. So I posted on Facebook that there was a couple of ducklings that the ducks had hatched, and we went out there. We got photos of them with the mums, and that was great. First 24 hours they were keeping them warm, sitting on them and everything else. And then the next morning we went out, and the ducklings were on the opposite side of the pen with another duck, and that duck was also sitting on eggs and was absolutely disinterested in the ducklings. So we decided to bring the ducklings inside because we already have the chickens in the brooder, and we already had that duckling that we'd saved. So a few days before that, there was a duckling that had hatched, but it was out in the middle of the poultry pen on its own. It was still breathing, it was still wet, so we stuck it in the incubator, warmed it up, and then moved it into the chickens, and he's fine. So we decided we'd bring these other two in and just put it with all the chickens and the ducklings and not worry about it. Now, I don't know what happened, but they didn't make it. They just slowly got flatter and flatter and passed away. We tried magic water, we tried putting them under a heat lamp, we tried hugs and attention, and they just didn't make it. So we lost those two ducklings. So we've still got the first one that we saved, but we don't have any others at the moment. The ducks are all still sitting on eggs, but we've just had 3 days of rain too. So whether any of them hatch, I don't know. So we don't know. But we do have 9 chicks still as well, and I have 36 eggs in the incubator from a friend who got me some cheap purebred chickens, so I'm going to hatch those out, which will be really fun, and then we might look at breeding more of them if we get the right sort of numbers, and maybe we can look at selling some of the purebred chickens to help pay for the feed for the others, and so the kids get to experience the hatching of them and that. So we'll see how we go with that. And we also have a duck egg in the incubator as well that we found that was still warm but had been discarded. We candled it, and it should be around about the same sort of a development, that it should hatch around about the same time as the chickens. So we'll see. Part and parcel of a homestead and having animals and all the rest of it. But it was really sad to lose those other two ducklings, and we had named them, of course, because we did. And so yeah, but there's that. So the chicks are all about 2 weeks old now and are slowly outgrowing the brooder that we built. So we have to start looking at moving them to something larger, and then that brooder will be for the newborns when the new ones hatch as well. And if we're going to do this on a regular basis, then we need to figure out some processes and things for that anyway, so we will work on that. We need to get some more timber, I think, because we're running a bit low on construction materials for that. We've got some heavy duty wood, which is supposed to be for the framing for the patio and stuff, but not any of the lighter weight stuff. So we will see how we go there. I'm out in the orchard because I didn't share it with you last time because there wasn't much change, and we've had a lot of change recently. So I wanted to show you the leafing up of these apple trees, which is really exciting. So these apple trees have done wonderfully in the last couple of weeks. This rain would have helped. So we've got some lovely new leaf on these apple trees, and most of them have, this is probably the best one, but most of them have new leaf out the top. We also have, let me take you here, the peach trees are doing fantastically. So this peach tree has set off so much new growth. It's wonderful.
You can eat the leaves.
And it doesn't look like it's got any particular, there's a lot of ants on it, which makes me wonder if there's any aphids anywhere, but I can't see anything, so that is doing wonderfully. And my pear tree has taken off a whole lot, except that Is it a bug, was it?
No. It's ants.
Oh, ants. So the pear tree... Pardon?
The ants are all over this pipe.
The ants are all over the pipe. That's probably because there's water in it.
So, do the ants dig into the pipe to drink all the water?
Well, no, it drips out of the pipe because that pipe's got holes in it for the water to drip out because that's the irrigation pipe.
Yeah. It's stuck so I can...
Yeah, don't move it though. It's for the plants. So the other... We're still cleaning up, obviously. The other peach tree is doing really well. And then if we take you around here to where the pear trees are, then this pear tree has taken off. The height on it is amazing. Well, the feijoas are doing really well too. You can see all that new growth, the pale green growth there. But this pear tree has just absolutely taken off. But it appears to have some pear scab or whatever. So I'm going to have to get some copper to treat that. I'm not due to go for my shopping trip.
The first one is really tiny.
The different types of trees, buddy. That's a pear tree. And the first ones over here are feijoas.
What is it?
That's a pear tree as well. I'm not due to do groceries for another 2.5 weeks, I think. So that's when I would normally go to Bunnings to... We do have some aphids here too that I have been coming out and just squishing.
What?
On the new growth. Just any sort of aphids that I see on the new growth, I just squish off, and it has been enough so far just to squish those aphids. And to keep them at bay. Though there does seem a little bit more than there has been, some on the backs of the leaves and stuff too, so I might bring some eco oil out to spray on these as well, just to keep the population under control, because if I miss a couple of days, then they can get pretty purple flower. They can get a little bit done. So the fruit trees are doing well though. Feijoas don't seem to attract any sort of bug, which I am happy about. I haven't really done much with feijoas before though, so it'll be interesting to do that. What else? We still haven't finished the netting on the second part of the garden where the berries are going to go, and it's become a bit overrun with volunteer plants and weeds. Let me turn you around. There's a lot of weeds and volunteers and stuff coming up. But I think what we're going to do is we're just going to dig holes for each of the berry trees and then work around them, because we have to get them in the ground. They're struggling in the little tiny pots. I don't really have large pots to pot them up to, and it's just going to get more and more out of control in this space. So I think we're just going to plant them out anyway and then work around them. So yes, we've got progress going on in a lot of ways, and that's wonderful, but there's enough frustration going on at the moment that it sort of overshadows the progress. I just don't feel like anything is going particularly well at the moment. And as I said, I think at the beginning of every garden season, I feel a little bit that way, when you've got baby animals hatching as well, and then you've got the plants not doing quite what you want, and there's not a lot you can do about it, and it's a bit hard. So anyway, that is the garden update for this week. In regards to anything else, we have groceries due in about 2.5 weeks, so I will have to start planning that out as well. Been doing lots of homeschool prep and pantry prep. We've got plenty of food. I've got plenty of food videos to share with you too. I've only put one out every second day the last few days, just because I've been a bit tied up, or a little bit, just flat. So I will get them sorted, and other than that, thank you very much for joining me again for this kind of not real positive sort of an update, and I will see you again next time. Thanks, guys.